Over the weekend, Donald Trump announced a new trade deal with the European...
Make a deal. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir. And then
China rejects U.S. demands to stop buying Russian and Iranian oil. China is vehemently pushing back against pressure from the United States to cease its oil imports from Russia and Iran, making it clear that its energy procurement policies are non-negotiable and based on its own national interests. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. This geopolitical standoff was highlighted in an August 4th report from the Associated Press, which detailed Beijing's steadfast refusal to bow to Washington's demands, despite the very real threat of punitive tariffs. The U.S. strategy is to use economic leverage to punish both Russia and Iran for their actions on the world stage. Russia continues its military campaign in Ukraine, while Iran provides support to militant groups that destabilize the Middle East. President Donald Trump has been particularly aggressive in this approach, threatening to impose secondary sanctions on any country that continues to purchase Russian oil unless Moscow agrees to a ceasefire by an August 8th deadline. However, China has consistently framed its energy purchases as a matter of national sovereignty that is not open to discussion. Following a series of trade talks in Stockholm, the Chinese Foreign Ministry took to X on July 30th to deliver a firm message. China will always ensure its energy supply in ways that serve our national interests. Coercion and pressuring will not achieve anything. China will firmly defend its sovereignty, security, and development interests. This statement is a clear and direct rejection of the U.S. attempts to dictate China's foreign and economic policy. It signals that Beijing is prepared to endure economic fallout rather than compromise on a matter it deems fundamental to its long-term stability and security. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent acknowledged this deep-seated friction, noting that China's continuous purchases of Russian oil remain a major sticking point in ongoing trade negotiations. He reportedly told journalists after the talks that the Chinese take their sovereignty very seriously. We don't want to impede on their sovereignty, so they would like to pay a 100% tariff. Bessent's statement suggests a profound impasse, where China's leadership is so committed to its position that it is willing to accept severe financial penalties rather than comply with U.S. sanctions. This reflects a significant divergence in how the two global superpowers view international law, national autonomy, and the use of economic sanctions as a tool of foreign policy. The situation reveals that while the U.S. hopes to create a united front against Russia and Iran, China is determined to chart its own course, regardless of the consequences. India's policy shift and mounting U.S. tariff threats. While China stands firm, other nations are showing signs of caving to U.S. pressure. India, a historically large purchaser of Russian crude, has begun to significantly alter its energy procurement strategy. According to Reuters, Indian Oil Corp, IOC, the country's largest oil refiner, has paused its purchases of Russian crude. In a clear sign of this strategic shift, IOC instead bought a substantial 7 million barrels of crude from the U.S., Canada, and the Middle East for September delivery. Two industry sources who spoke to Reuters indicated that this change was, in part, a direct response to the growing wave of Western sanctions targeting Russia's oil industry. This move demonstrates the tangible impact of U.S. economic and political pressure, showing that the threat of sanctions is powerful enough to make key global players reconsider their alliances. President Trump has been a very vocal critic of India's previous actions. In an August 4th post on Truth Social, he publicly condemned India for not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, but also for allegedly refining it and selling the refined products on the open market for a big profit. Trump's post was emotionally charged, asserting that India's actions showed a callous disregard for the human cost of the war, stating they don't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed by the Russian war machine. He followed this with an explicit threat, promising, "Because of this, I will be substantially raising the tariff paid by India to the USA." His words make it clear that the U.S. is willing to use its economic power to punish countries it believes are undermining its foreign policy goals. The push for tougher penalties is not limited to the former president's statements. Senator Lindsey Graham is leading a bipartisan effort to pass legislation that would authorize extremely high tariffs, potentially reaching 500% on nations that continue to buy Russian energy. This bill, introduced in April, has garnered significant support, with 84 co-sponsors in the Senate alone, reflecting a broad consensus in Congress that strong economic measures are needed to isolate Russia. A parallel version of the bill has also been introduced in the House of Representatives, suggesting a unified front within the U.S. government on this issue. This legislative effort represents a concerted and sustained strategy to use economic pressure to force countries to choose a side in the geopolitical conflict. The deepening China-Russia alliance and its implications. China's defiant position is consistent with its past behavior in trade disputes, where it has historically been the only country to directly and forcefully retaliate against U.S. tariffs. This current resistance is fortified by a visibly deepening relationship with Russia. Following a significant meeting on July 15th in Beijing with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, Chinese President Xi Jinping publicly pledged to expand their strategic partnership. She described the alliance as a model for a new type of international relations, a phrase that underscores its significance and permanence. He emphasized that the mutual trust between the two nations had deepened, and he urged both sides to strengthen mutual support on multilateral forums, indicating a commitment to presenting a united front on the global stage. Despite its official claims of neutrality in the Russia-Ukraine war, China has become an essential economic and technological lifeline for Moscow. This has not gone unnoticed by Ukraine. According to Vladislav Vlasiuk, Ukraine's sanctions commissioner, China is now the primary supplier of dual-use components, items with both civilian and military applications, that are found in Russian weaponry, including the devastating Shahid-type drones used to attack Ukrainian cities. In response, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has sanctioned 5 Chinese companies for their role in supplying these parts to Russia. The depth of China's commitment was further confirmed by an illuminating statement from Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who reportedly told EU officials that Beijing cannot afford for Russia to lose the war. This remarkable admission confirms China's vested interest in a Russian victory and its role as a key backer of the Russian war machine. It is a clear indication that China's support for Russia is not merely political, but also strategic and economic. This unyielding commitment makes it highly improbable that China will concede to U.S. demands regarding its energy purchases, solidifying the two nations' bond and creating a significant challenge to the U.S. led international order.